And it's way harder to get out of than it is to get into.
Yeah.
So,
And now picking your brain because, why do you think narcissistic abuse is a complex of behaviors, which is by today well-defined and easily recognized as well? Why is it not criminalized in any jurisdiction? There is coercive control in the United Kingdom and this kind of bullshit, but there's no criminalization of narcissistic abuse as a complex set of behaviors. Why do you think that is?
well, I think because judges don't recognize it at this point yet. I mean, I think that they look for evidence, right? And because they haven't seen, okay, what are the factors? What they need to see is here are the set of factors that define narcissistic abuse. And so what they need to see is somebody has to come forward and say, here is what defines narcissistic abuse. Somebody has to introduce that as a bill and bring it to the legislature and say, this is a defined set of factors that can be over and over uh, something that a court can go, I can look at this and every single time uh, know that I can uh, look at the elements and every single court can um, uh, look at evidence for each set of elements. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've spoken to many lawyers in the last 28 years, and I know that many elements of narcissistic abuse are criminalized. So, for example, coercive control in the United Kingdom, I think also in Canada.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I have seen that many courts are starting to do that,
yeah.
but I know that that's what they're going to want. They're going to
But
want
not
to
the whole
see
package. What I'm trying to say is
uniformity.
that elements are criminalized, but not the cumulative package. Like,
Right. So, but they're going to want to be able to see uniformity across the board so that each element can be proven up, right?
I must say there is huge homogeneity. Go to any forum of victims. The
Right.
experiences replicate, they're
I
close.
agree with you. I mean, I think that it should be, but that's I know what um they're going to want to see. So somebody's going to have to come forward and introduce it as a bill and say, here's how it can be um
Why someone like you doesn't initiate a campaign? I mean, you're uniquely positioned to do this.
oh, well, maybe I should.
I think you should. I mean,
Yeah,
you're the most prominent legal voice in the sphere.
yeah, I am.
I can attest to this.
Yeah.
So you have kind of moral responsibility, if you wish. I mean, why not, I'm serious, why not start a campaign to criminalize narcissistic abuse? I think you will have enormous amounts of support. I mean,
Well,
in all, even in academia, now we're beginning to have academic articles about narcissistic abuse with the phrase narcissistic abuse. I'm very gratified to see this. But even in academia, we
yeah.
admit, we accept, we acknowledge that narcissistic abuse is detrimental to the victim. For example, 10 years ago, no, 12 years ago, there was a new
Mhm.
discovery in neuroscience, not related to, and they discovered something called entrainment. Entrainment is when the brain waves of two or more people are synchronized in a way that an EEG, an electroencephalograph, cannot tell the difference. So if you're connected to a machine and I'm connected to a machine, and the machine registers our brain waves, they will be indistinguishable from one another. This is called entrainment. Now, how did they discover it? They registered the brain waves of participants in a rock band. And they discovered that when they start to play the music, all their brain waves synchronize. That was
Mm.
12 years ago. Now we know that all sounds do this. Sounds do this. They sing. If you and I were to start to listen to a specific song right now, within less than 5 minutes, fewer than 5 minutes, our brain waves would be largely synchronized. And
Mhm.
there would be no way to tell which is which.
Wow.
So sound has this impact. And I suggested a few years ago, 7 years ago or something, that verbal abuse is a sound system.
Mhm.
The narcissist tends to repeat the same slides. It's like a mantra. like a
Yeah,
mantra.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And I think the narcissist
It is like
entrains
being in
you.
a cult. Oh, for sure. I
There is
mean,
entrainment here.
for sure.
So this is an example of how academia is beginning to accept that in narcissistic abuse situations, there are components which are objectively measurable. For example,
Mm.
brain waves. No one has, can you believe it? No one has taken a narcissist and his victim or spouse or whatever and measured their brain waves. No one
Well,
has.
it would have to be on a statewide level, so it would have to be per state.
I'm not a lawyer. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it would have to be per state. It wouldn't be federal.
wouldn't
Because
be
in the
federal. Yeah.
No, no, no. It would in the United States, it's per state.
So we'd have to start in California, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Easiest, easiest
yeah,
target. Yeah,
for sure,
yeah,
for sure.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
really
and
encourage you.
the way the United States is going right now, I mean, there's already like rumblings of issues in divorce law because of the current political.
I read about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
terrifying.
yeah.
Well, you have to go blue, but I I really encourage you to do this. I think that no one is more uniquely positioned than you to do this and
Yeah,
leverage your
nobody's
reputation.
ever actually approached me about that before, other than, this is the first conversation I've ever had with somebody about that.
I think if
Uh,
you embark on a campaign, and forget the visibility and all the attendant benefits. I mean, that's besides the point. But if you embark on a campaign, I think you're uniquely positioned. I mean, there are
I
many.
like having conversations with people like you. Get out of my little bubble over here.
Yeah. Here's something you can do which would definitely make a difference. I mean, a big difference. Victims are suffering, and when they're trying to break down their abuse into components, he coerced me, he verbally abused me.
Yeah.
In some countries, I don't know the United States, but the conviction rate for rape is like 0.3%, or I don't know what. That's rape. That's an ostensibly objective. When victims of narcissistic abuse try to discuss narcissistic abuse with legal authorities, the police, law enforcement, they're laughed out of the room because even rape is difficult to prosecute. I mean, let alone ephemeral notions of he verbally abused me,
Mhm.
But we're not talking about he verbally abused me. We are talking about a campaign, orchestrated campaign, to use words in order to affect your mind, alter it, take over it. It's very different qualitatively. And this is only one component in dozens of components, which comprise together the picture of narcissistic abuse. Some of these components can be objectively proven, some of them cannot. Some of them is he said, she said, but many of them can be objectively proven. And someone has to put the package together and say, if there's anyone who engages in this behavior in a systematic way, then it should not be legal. It should
Hmm.
be criminal.
Well, my daughter interned for Governor Newsom for two semesters last year, so be an
I'm sorry,
interesting
you
conversation.
interned for Governor Newsom?
My
Oh,
daughter
your
finished.
daughter? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, all right.
yeah. Um, so that would be an interesting
Bear
conversation.
that in mind. I think I think your whole career may have led exactly to this, in my view. I mean, you combine law and the topic. So I think your whole career may have led to this, in my view. Someone has to do that. Someone has
Interesting.
to do that. I was
That's
involved with the coercive control campaign in Scotland and England.
you were.
I was involved. Yes, there's an interview online with the initiators of the campaign and so on. I was involved with this. I gave them the kind of academic background, if you wish, and so on. And they were far less qualified than you. They were kids, basically. And they,
Hmm.
they made it. It's an offense. In the United Kingdom, coercive control is a serious offense. I mean, like 5 years, 10 years in prison, something. It's a
That's
serious.
good.
Sorry?
That is amazing. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I love that.
Not only there, I think Canada adopted the same law. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Australia, I think. So it's spreading. Coercive control is a bad thing. Coercive control is when you essentially kidnap someone. You take away their identification cards and whatever, passports or whatever. You leave them
Hmm.
without money, no access to any communication means of communication, and so on. So it's essentially kidnapping. So it's more objective. It's like easier to prove. But narcissistic abuse is much wider. So I don't know. I know I'm not a lawyer, but I think if you prove, you don't have to prove like all the elements of narcissistic abuse. It's enough if you prove a preponderance, like a preponderance of elements,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then it sticks. I think something like that. Maybe civil, maybe not only criminal, but something civil as well. But it can't go unpunished. It's a very common form of abuse nowadays. I mean, go online. I don't need to tell you, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. It's not a joke.
Oh,
It's
I'm aware. Yeah, no,
it's huge.
aware. Yeah.
Okay,
Uh, well, it's interesting. I'm glad we had this conversation, especially knowing that they uh, know what they're doing, and they can't change.
they cannot change. It's not that they cannot change. They don't have incentive to change. They don't want to change.
Right.
I told you that in prison they do change. They have a great incentive, a knife in the back.
Yeah, but again, they can change their behavior.
Yes, but they cannot change internally. Yes, true.
Right, right. It's not the same.
It's a compulsion. You're right in this. It's a compulsion in the sense that there's something happening inside that forces them to behave, to misbehave. It's not a clear-cut case. The mens rea, if you wish, is not it's like a psychopath. Psychopath premeditates, plans, has a goal.
Right,
It's not the same. Here we have a delusion combined with a compulsion. It's a sick person, and there
right,
is a drive, an urge from inside, an impulse that pushes the narcissist to behave
right.
the way he does.
Yeah,
However, given the right incentives, like fear, the narcissist can change, definitely.
yeah. It's not an internal change.
Not internal, but behaviorally, the narcissist can change.
Yes. Yeah.
Limited, of course, when the narcissist leaves prison, he reverts. He goes back to being a
Right.
narcissist. No.
Yeah. Right. So this has been a fascinating conversation. It
Thank you.
always is.
Thank you
Always
for having
is.
me.
And and I love that we went into sort of the political end of things too, because I think that that's there's always so much more. We always leave more that I think that we could get into a whole other level of conversation at some point, like uh the organizational end of things, right? Um, where could we go next as far as is there an incentive to be a narcissist,
There
right?
are. In current civilization, of course, there are
Right?
huge incentives to be a narcissist and very few incentives, I would say disincentives to not be a narcissist. If
Hmm.
you're not pushy, if you're not ambitious, if you're not competitive, if you're not disempathic, lacking in empathy, if you're not aggressive, if you're not, I mean, you're doomed in today's.
What's the impact? What's the impact of that long term?
Well, you see
We'll
what's
kind of
happening around you. It's a
leave
dog.
that for another conversation.
Yeah, it's a jungle, law of the jungle. It's a dog eat dog. It's might is right. I mean, you see it around you. I don't need to tell you.
It's the Darwinism conversation, I think, in some ways. And then, how do we navigate that from a negotiation communication point of view? And that's what I'm training on right
I
now.
would I would generalize what you've just said. How to not become prey. As more and more people become
Right,
predators,
right.
as being predator is the bon ton, and everyone
That
wants to be a
that's what
predator.
I'm training on, right?
How
So
to not become prey?
that kind of leave that for part three of
Okay,
our
my pleasure.
conversation.
Okay, take care.
As always, so fascinating,
Thank you.
Sam.
It's been a great conversation. I agree.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. I appreciate you so
Okay.
much. And I
Have
know
a,
all of you out there in our podcast land will absolutely love this. And we leave this for our next conversation. So thank you,
thank
Sam
you.
Backman. And
Have a narcissist-free weekend.
yes, all right.
Take care.
Uh,
Bye.
thank you all. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.